in 3 cities in Finland, in Espoo, Tampere, and Turku. And in the project, we are developing districts based on circular economy and sharing economy. We are doing that together with cities, with residents, with companies, and other stakeholders. And from that, we are forming a partnership model, sort of describing the role of the city in collaboration with other stakeholders. So in the development of an area based on circular economy. So with this project, we want to improve the partnership between these actors and the cities and the practices of how the city best functions as a type of platform. In the project, we are looking for new solutions for circular economy in cities and for growth of circular business in cities. And in the project, we'll be also carrying out pilots for circular economy together with companies. In Espoo, we are focusing on the following. So first is the previous slide still. So the first is the temporary use of space and sharing economy. The second one would be material, nutrient, and energy flows. And the third one, urban food production. As for the city, we are keen on creating partnerships. And in general, Espoo has been developing the city based on partnerships and collaboration for some time. But when it comes to circular economy, we want to support it in Espoo with this collaboration and with solving bottlenecks and so on. So we're glad to get in touch with different actors to help improve circular models. So now we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So now I would like to inform you that we have recently opened a fast experiments application round for companies for piloting solutions in city environment. These fast experiments, well, I think agile experiments is the correct word for this, but they will be taking place in Tampere and in Turku. Tampere and Espoo. Basically, the process is that we have challenges or themes for which we are looking for solutions. So we will be purchasing piloting from companies. There's an application form available in which companies describe the idea they want to pilot within the themes or challenges we are looking for solutions for. The business idea needs to be something new. It needs to be something innovative, or for example, an extension to an existing service. And the ideas for agile pilots will then be evaluated, and the best will be chosen to be carried out in the pilots. In Tampere, for example, the maximum amount for one pilot is 10,000 euros for carrying out the pilot. So this time we are looking for business solutions for circular economy regarding these themes. In Tampere, the theme is urban food production. Tampere is currently developing Hiedanranta district based on circular economy and looking for new business-driven solutions for urban food production there. It is quite an open theme to apply for, but the solutions for urban environment food production should emphasize sustainability in food production and should be based on new technology or operating models. Meanwhile, in Espoo, we are looking for pilots for two different themes. We have urban food production, same as in Tampere, and solutions for reducing food waste. Basically, the idea can be any type of urban food production or technology for that. And as for the topic of food waste, it can deal with any link in the food chain, such as household waste, retail, the services that the city provides, and so on. So these topics are quite open. In Espoo, the district of Kera is being developed to be based on circular economy and digital solutions. So there's, for example, a lot of temporary space now, and it would be great to have more circular economy-based companies there. But the agile experiments in this application round can be carried out anywhere in Espoo. And then we could have the next slide, please. So with Tampere, the application round is now open. It has been opened, and you can read more about the application there. It will be open until the 5th of June. Whereas in Espoo, we will be publishing the application round in June. So there's more info to come then. I will be sharing you a link right now to have an option to check out the agile experiments in Tampere. But I'm anyway happy to answer any questions you have about the agile experiments or the project itself. And with the piloting, I'm hoping to see a lot of new ideas. And also today in the next speech is to hear more about the existing innovative solutions for these challenges. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Mia. And just as a reminder for everybody, you can type your questions at any time into the chat, and we will come back to those then later in the QA when we will basically ask all the speakers back on stage or back into the chat to address those. But you can type your questions already now so that you don't forget about them. Thanks, Mia. I think cities have been platforms for innovation and platforms for the new forever. I mean, since cities exist, new things have been happening there, and new innovation has been nurtured within cities. And as we did the plastics ecosystem as one of our projects, the public players, be it cities or be it the regulator on EU or national level, plays a key role in driving the circular economy forward and in making sure that investments are done in the right space. So it's great to hear that there will be rapid experiments around urban food and avoiding food waste going forward. Talking about avoiding food waste, as I mentioned earlier, L&T was one of the first companies, at least to my understanding, that put circular economy into the core of its strategy, basically defining the company as a circular economy doer, I think was the wording that was used 2 years ago or even longer than that. So I'm looking forward to hear from Marcus about the latest developments in digital solutions. Marcus is Digital Service and Business Design Lead at L&T. And we'll now talk a little bit about the digital solutions, but also, I guess, non-digital solutions that L&T has been developing and is developing in the area of food waste, but also in other areas. Marcus, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hopefully everyone can hear me and see
Yes.
me if they would like to. Okay, so first of all, thank you for inviting me here. I'm really honored and grateful to be here in this event and surrounded by experts on this particular matter. Me myself, I'm just a service designer, so be gentle on me on this circular economy theme. Okay, so I'm going to present you some of the examples of the concrete things that we have been doing in circular economy. But I would like to start with this really short company intro. So if you could turn to next, thank you. So what is L&T? What do we do? Our core business consists of 4 different divisions. And there's the environmental services, industrial services, facility services in Finland, and facility services in Sweden. And I'm currently focusing on the facility services side, and most of the examples that I will be showing you are innovated in the environmental services division by my lovely colleagues. We have over 8,000 persons in the company, and what is really interesting is that we are quite happy to be here and working in L&T. So our employee NPS is over 70%. Of course, there's always room for improvements there. As Michael said, we are trying to be the practical doer or maker in the circular economy. We want to make it a reality, and we have an excellent possibility to do so if we think about the 4 divisions and that we have in our core business. Carbon footprint, the reductions of the emissions, or the other way around, carbon handprint, and then increasing the handprint is one thing that we are heavily focusing on. And there you can see some of the figures from last year. But we have a short time, so I will be going through the examples of the innovations next. So food is the theme today in this event, so I wanted to bring up some food related stuff. Food waste is globally, and in Finland it's a really big thing. It's a really important thing to be addressed. Globally, about a third of the initially edible food is wasted, which is crazy. In Finland, this means around 4 million kilograms of food wasted every year, and in money, it's 500 million euros every year. So it's a really big matter, and it touches every part of the food value and supply chain. So and we wanted to do something about it. So in the next slide, you will see the our new service called Waste Master that we launched 2 years ago. This is a service that helps restaurants to monitor the food waste, and with this knowledge, it's a lot easier to actually decrease the level of food wasted and to get really important benefits from it. And it's really has been a success story, because actually a couple of weeks ago, a company called CGI in Finland actually acquired and purchased the rights to the service, and Waste Master will be part of their service portfolio from now on. So, and they are actually have been doing a lot of services, digital services for restaurants in a broader sense. So this will be a nice add-on to their portfolio, and a nice exit story for us as a practical doer. The next example is actually related to food again, and it's actually one of our customers, Meira, which has a coffee roastery in Helsinki. They want to be sustainable, and also at the same time they have they want to make better use of the waste streams in their coffee production. So we figured, what could we actually do? So we partnered up with their team. So one environmental manager and one energy manager from L&T actually partner up with the Meira's team, and what we actually figured out is that, okay, there's actually a way to make a biogas from the coffee waste that comes from the roasting process, and use that biogas to actually roast new coffee, which is actually pretty exciting. So we are making coffee or roasting coffee from previously roasted coffee, or the waste, the side stream. And by doing that, we actually are cutting the CO2 emissions by about 77 tons per year, and actually at the same time increasing the recycling rate at Meira. So this is really interesting, because there's food, there's energy, and there's the material side of it combined together in this solution. And the third example is actually less focus on food, but still kind of like supporting the idea. So we have a plastic recycling plant in Merikarvia, which we are using to make new plastic out of old plastic. So we collect or sort the plastics in the at the source, then we collect it, transport it to the plant, and by processing, means shredding, washing, granulating, and melting, and so on, we make new plastic, those small how do you call it, granulating, what comes from it, and by doing so, we actually are reducing the oil used for making fresh or new plastic by as much as 400,000 barrels every year. So we are making an impact. Then you could ask what comes out from the plant, or the what is the end product, and the next slide can give us an example of that. So Helmi pallets. Helmi is the product name for this pallet, loading pallet, that is actually made out of the recycled plastic. And what is exciting about this product is that it's basically it has no end of life, because you can actually when this pallet breaks down or comes too weak, you can actually make a new Helmi pallet out from it. So there's almost a closed loop here in using this plastic as a recycled material. Okay, but then I was talking about the facility services. That is more my focus area, and we would like to think that circular economy is also present in facility services, so cleaning, maintenance, building technology side. And what it really means is that we are trying to extend the expiry date of the buildings, and doing so with digitalization. We know that it's the answer, and we are learning by doing. In the last 3 years, we have done 13 of IoT and data related experiments, and one of them has really succeeded. And I must say that the 12 which failed didn't fail because of the technology. So what we are trying to do is that we are searching for compelling evidence of the feasibility of different use cases, not just the new technology. Yet digitalization is a big thing, but in the next slide and the final slide, I will show some of the newest stuff that we have been trying to do. Corona pandemic is affecting us all, and as a facility services company, we are shifting our focus towards the customer needs. So our customers are more and more interested about well-being and safety of the workforce, let's say that it's a retail store or in a grocery store, and what we did is that we provided them fast response, hygiene and disinfection task forces, and 24/7 kind of like hotline for ordering this kind of disinfection, cleaning services, and so on. And at the same time, we see that the e-commerce is surging, and the stores or the actors are struggling to deliver the goods to their customers, who most of the time spend their time at home. So what we can do there is we can actually provide extra staffing workforce that will do the picking and collecting in the stores, and possibly use even our own vehicles as a shared fleet for the deliveries. Then again, working from home is really important factor for us, because there's no longer so big needs for office spaces, for example, to be cleaned or to be maintained. So could we actually provide home cleaning services or handyman services to the people at home? So we are experimenting that as well. So, and even find new uses for the office spaces. So there's lots and lots of stuff that we are actually trying to do, and in this Corona thing, we are actually forced to do so. But it's challenging, and also at the same time, there's a lot of possibilities. Yeah, but I think that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and I will be joining the Q&A section as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Marcus. I think really interesting, and I think specifically the helmet pellet was very interesting. When we looked at the plastic circulation at different scenarios, we realized that the key challenge is not necessarily the recycling itself. It actually is an important element of it, but that actually the use of recycled plastics is one of the key bottlenecks that we will have in the future. If we recycle all the plastic that we have produced, we need to do something with it. We don't just need to take it back, but we need to bring it back into circulation. So solutions like the pellet are really spot on in basically using these recycled materials. Perfect. Thank you, Marcus. We'll come back to further questions. There were some questions later on in the Q&A.
Yep. Thank you.
Moving forward, we've now heard about rapid experiments in the city context. We heard about food avoidance or usage of food waste, as well as other circular means. Let's now maybe move over for a moment to the urban food production, to vertical farming, to greenhouses, as they're actually, as I guess we all know, growing food is very energy intensive, it's very water intensive, but also then transporting the food to where it's actually consumed is another big part, has another big impact on the environment. So if we can basically get the food closer to where it's used, where it's eaten, we will be able to have a quite significant impact. Nettled is basically working exactly on that, to basically work on the vertical farming, on the greenhouse solutions, on smart solutions in that space. And I'm happy to welcome Nico, the CEO of Nettled, to the stage, the virtual one, to talk about that in a little bit more detail. Nico. And while Nico is rejoining to give his presentation, maybe one word. When the speakers say change the slide, it's not that I'm not switching fast enough. There is a little bit of a delay between the slide changing and it changing for all of you out there, as I guess the digital technology is not always fast enough to actually bring real time the slides over to you. Okay, Nico, welcome back. So the stage is yours.
Thanks, Michael. Just one thing before you go. I thought there was Juhani's turn first, but am I mistaken?
No, it's your turn. Your slides are next.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yes.
Thank you. So a few words about Netled and Vera first before we go into the circular parts of the presentation. So Netled, we are we're actually Pirkkala-based company where we develop turnkey technology for automated high-volume vegetable production plants, completely indoor systems that is with increasing pace, replacing the greenhouse and the open field growing. Main driving, let's say, forces there is the mega trends of pollution on the fields, the energy intensive growing in indoors, climate change, which makes it very difficult to find fresh water, but also to grow crops in southern areas like even Spain. There was a snowstorm a few years back that caused a massive disruption on the food supply because the cheapest possible lettuce was no longer available due to the storm. So that's who we are. So Vera is a Netled-owned brand that is putting together all parts of technology, not just LEDs needed for the growing, but all logistics of the crops inside the facility, the climate systems, irrigation systems, elevators, all these things required for the crops to move automatically. And now we are also releasing a robotized harvesting and transplanting systems for more cost-efficient and secure production. Okay, next, please. Let's go into the circular part. So, few words about the traditional way of producing. This is a greenhouse, but the same things, same topics you can expand to open field growing as well. So greenhouse works so that there is a solar energy coming in as a heat form and radiation for the plants to grow. And then there's cooling dehumidification that is used to control the climate, make it optimal for the plants. And these are controlled and supplemented with artificial lighting and artificial heating. And this is very energy intense way to produce crops. As you can see, energy, I think it was Luke report a few years back that stated that in Finland, 27 kilowatt hours per produced kilogram of lettuce is the energy requirement for that production. In water part, the fresh water need is 36 liters per kilogram, including some input materials and their water requirements. So it's not just irrigation water, but also the other parts. Next, please. So when we look at a vertical farm, completely closed environment, so you can see there's a lot of internal circular elements already applied there. So when greenhouse is more of a semi-closed environment for growing and highly dependent on the outside environment and conditions, in vertical farm you can see that it's insulated environment. It's like black box, and there is everything that goes into the black box also comes out of the black box, and we can manipulate everything using the technology we have available. So you can see all those arrows going out and coming back into the vertical farm. So, for example, the energy we are using to dehumidify the vertical farm, we are returning that back as our heating energy of that vertical farm. So basically, all the energy that is used in vertical farm comes through the LED lights in a form of electricity. There's no need for additional heating, and we are actually producing excess heat that can be used, and we have used in other parts, which comes later in this presentation. The second part is the water circulation. In normal, please go back. Okay, thanks. So the water circulation, which is that blue arrow, this is an interesting part because there is 90% of the water that we are putting in to the vertical farm is coming out as a condensate water, and we are returning that to irrigation. So if you consider that 70%, approximately 70% of the global freshwater use is actually used as an irrigation water for crop production, And if you think that we could return 90% of that water back to the irrigation, meaning that we would reduce our consumption down to 10% only, that would make an immense change into the consumption of water. Of course, it's a little bit naive to say that we could replace all field growing with the vertical farming. But then again, even the lettuce production, the herb production is replacing the field production. And there we are already making the change of replacing this water consumption. And there you can see the numbers for vertical farms. So 1.5 liters per kilogram. When in greenhouse, it's 33 liters when we are comparing only irrigation and not other parts of the production inputs. When we look at the energy, we are consuming 10 kilowatt hours per kilogram, when in greenhouse that is 27 kilowatt hours per kilogram. We have actually reached 8 kilowatt hours already, but that's not verified data yet. So that's not something we print out yet. The one interesting part about greenhouses with CO2 enrichment is that 1 hectare of normal greenhouse with CO2 enrichment is actually emitting 200 tons of carbon dioxide into atmosphere because of the ventilation of the greenhouse. But in vertical farms, we do have closed loop of HVAC, which allows us to reduce that consumption almost down to zero, but still, of course, there's some leakages in the system. But anyways, we are 1/8 of the consumption in carbon dioxide. Next, please. Sorry, there's seems to be a little delay with these slides. Okay, and here you can see what we have done so far with the external circular things. So the dotted lines are something that we are working at the time. There's projects that we are investigating these opportunities, and the solid lines are something we have done already. So we have a vertical farms that we've supplied that are producing excess energy to greenhouses that are on the same property, but also another project where there is a brewery, and the brewery tanks are heated up with the energy coming from the vertical farm. But actually, the brewery is also using the herbs from this vertical farm and seasoning or putting some taste from basil, for example, to the beers that they are producing. This is in England, this project, so it's promised land of beers. Fish culture is really interesting because there's a lot of back and forth stuff like CO2, nutrients, and fresh water and things like this. It's very complex technology though, so it requires quite a lot of equipment, but it's really interesting approach to future circular systems. Next, please. Thank you. So the one thing that we just finished up a couple of weeks ago actually is a so-called virtual power plant system, which is probably the closest to digital circular theme here. So the traditional grid have issues nowadays with the rapidly increasing renewable energy sources, which has a fast changes of generation capacity. Solar, for example, clouds come and go, and the generation capacity goes up and down very fast. It can go very fast up and down. And in normal consumption, we have a constant load, which means that there is no match of consumption and supply of energy. And this implies a great stress to the grid, the electrical grid, because there is no way to balance you can use batteries, but that's still very early stage technology to balance that with batteries. So now the grid has to take all this in and has to supply all the load that is required. Next, please. So now the smart grid, which have been talked quite a lot, is to allow the grid to control different loads, so we can actually match that supply and demand with perfect fit together. So when in old days the stability of the grid was vulnerable, and there was quite a lot of fluctuation with the frequency of the electricity. So and that was tried to be compensated with water hydro plants and these things. But now it becomes more and more tricky because of the increase of renewable energy. So what we have done together with Fortum and one of our clients, and also with our own facility here in Pirkkala, is that we have plugged in our LED load of the farms, and we are actually changing the consumption of electricity with the farms with the same pace that the supply is changing on the other side. And this actually produces the stable 50 Hertz electricity to the main grid and eliminates this problematic from the grids. Of course, we are not doing that all. We are just a small, tiny portion of that whole thing. But that's the whole idea of smart grids, that these small loads or relatively big loads even are put together, and the whole package of this whole reserves can balance the renewable energies. So in a nutshell, we are actually enabling further generation of renewable energy. Next, please. Okay, here is just a little description. Sorry about the confusing layout of the slide, but you can see how it works. So Fingrid is responsible for the grid, and Fortum is the operator that has done the deal with Fingrid to let's say to maintain the grid frequency. So they're monitoring the frequency, and they are controlling automatically our LEDs, and we are showing in their meters as increased and decreased load, and this is all done fully automatically. So Fortum is doing the deals with Fingrid automatically, and Fortum is fully automatically controlling our loads to compensate this grid. Next, please. Here's a little list about what's been traded in this field. So these prices have nothing to do with the electricity price itself. This is just the trading of what takes place in the actual reserve of compensating the disturbances in the grid. So if you take a look at, for example, the FCRN, which is the ultra-fast compensation grid, 2020 price 13.2 euros per megawatt hour. So, for example, our client is paying about 40 euros per megawatt hour of energy, and when he is allowing his load to be connected to this grid, he's actually getting 13 euros back for that reserve to be plugged into the grid. So it's actually quite significant on these energy intense production like the vertical farming to have this advantage, and it actually makes financial sense to save the grid and enable further renewable energy. Next, please. So what do we do? So basically Fortum, who is the operator in this case, of course, there's a lot of operators that can do the same thing, but in this case it's Fortum, and what we can do, what they are doing is that the Fortum and the end client who is allowing their loads to be controlled like with the system, so they are actually splitting that value together. So because they are putting their stakes in, Fortum is putting the trading in place and also integrating different loads to their offering, while the end client is allowing their process to be, let's say, influenced by this controlling. So what we are doing is that we are facilitating this whole system. So our technologies behind controlling the LEDs and connecting to the Fortum grid to allow this whole thing to happen. But in addition, what we are doing, we are not just operating or relaying that information, but we are also making sure that the plants are not harmed by the fluctuating of light intensities. So we are actually calculating how much light is missing from the plants every day, and we are compensating that with the LED lighting, allowing the production not to be harmed by the production. Okay, next slide, please. Yes, and this is actually the final slide, just to give you a glimpse of our facility in Pirkkala and the crops that we are actually selling in the nearby nearby a supermarket. So this is a little own operation that we are having just to test the facility and the technology, but still it's a quite nice cooperation with the supermarket selling these vertically farmed crops. That's all for me now. I think I'm over my time because Michael appeared there already, so sorry about that.
No worries. Thanks, Nico. I always find it interesting and fascinating how much technology goes into growing our food. You would normally think it's very simple, like in your garden, you put a seed into the ground and everything happens from there with a little bit of water and sunlight. But it's far from that. I think it's high technology, it's smart technology actually there. So thanks a lot, Nico, for walking us through that. And now over to our final speaker. Sorry, Juhani, for a little bit of a mix-up there in the order. Juhani is the CEO of Suurla, looking at basically taking care of all the products you see in the supermarket that have the best buy date either passed or where products are basically taken off the shelf by supermarkets for whatever reason, to make sure that these don't end up in the waste. And they do that in a very smart and digital way. Juhani, looking forward to hear more about your solution and your business. Over to you.
Thank you, Michael. And is the technology working? So can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Great to be here. And hi, everybody. I'm Juhani Järvensivu from Suurla. I'm the CEO in our company. I will tell you a little bit about our company first, and then in the end I will talk more about sustainability and circular economy and how those are involved on what we are doing. But those are very involved, and you will figure it out. But basically, we have online store fixuraka.fi where we sell surplus food. So basically, we help our suppliers to get rid of the surplus, and then on the other side, consumers can buy groceries with a low price, and they can actually take part on reducing of food waste by ordering from our store. So basically, our suppliers are food manufacturers, importers, and wholesalers. But we will get back to that soon. We can move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, we can start about the team. Just briefly, so you know who we are. So we are a group of 14 people in our team. This is actually the biggest success in our history so far, that we have got so great team together, and everybody is very professional on what they are doing, and they actually have really full ownership on their own process and own area. So this is something that we are very proud of. So basically, we have 5 people in marketing team, 4 people in procurement. Our founder, Richard, is responsible for the logistics. We have 2 persons in customer service, 1 data and analytics guy or wizard, and then me as a CEO. So basically, I'm mostly responsible for motivating and sparring the team and making sure that they have all the resources that they need. And of course, I'm responsible for the strategy and KPIs and funding and so on. But let's move on. Here are some same numbers that Markus had about food waste. But I will go through these briefly, so you will probably remember these after this. So basically, only in Finland, 400 to 500 million kilograms of food goes to waste each year. So it's a huge issue. And globally, it's about 30% of the produced food. In Finland, it's only 10 to 15%. So actually, in Finland, the numbers are not even so bad compared to the average numbers globally. Actually, 1/3 of the whole environmental impact that humans have comes from food. So if 1/3 of the food goes to waste, and the whole environmental impact that food causes is about 1/3, so it's roughly about 10% of the environmental impact that comes from food waste. So it's a huge issue. But let's move on to the next slide. Here is our business idea in a nutshell. So basically, we buy surplus batches from manufacturers, importers, wholesalers, and then we sell those through our online store to all around Finland. And that's how we connect demand and supply. So we don't actually buy from supermarkets. We buy before supermarkets from the supply chain. So directly from manufacturers and importers. And we are specialized in products that you can keep on room temperature. So only dry food, cans, drinks, candies, and so on. And a lot of non-food items, so let's say soaps and kitchen stuff and so on. And there is this kind of surplus because of many reasons. The main reason is the best before date, but there is many other reasons also, like products that are going out from the market, changing packages, just mistakes in demand forecasting. So there is multiple reasons why we get products. Next, please. Here is our business model, so how this really works. So basically on the left side on the picture is what we are doing ourselves in-house. So we take care of the supplier relations, we make the orders from them, we buy the surplus batches, then we do service design on our online store by ourselves, which basically means conversion optimization. So we try to get as much sales as possible out of the traffic that we are driving to the online store. And then we are doing digital marketing and actually the whole marketing and all the optimization there by ourselves. So basically buying and selling and all the analytics behind those are our core competencies and the parts that we are doing ourselves. And the whole logistics is outsourced on the right side of the picture. So for example, we have outsourced warehouse in Turku in Finland, and all the products goes through that outsourced warehouse. Also, really all our, we can stay on the last slide for a while still. So our biggest competitive advantages are also on the procurement and digital marketing, and actually on the analytics and data side of those. So all our competitive advantages are on data and analytics and the use of those. In procurement, we have own software on pricing and procurement analytics. And also we are very advanced on optimizing of digital marketing and customer acquisition. So those are the areas that we know the best, and pretty much everything else is outsourced. Yeah, now we can move on. There are some numbers where we have got so far, how we have done. So the green line in the picture is our monthly sales. So we have pretty much started from the summer 2017. Back then we had one supplier and warehouse in our founder's garage. And that's pretty much when I started as a CEO. And then we started to run through all possible suppliers and scaling digital marketing and so on. And from there, we have been growing all the way to the other end of the line. So now we have a little bit over 1 million euros monthly sales and about 13 million euros run rate. So monthly sales times 12. And there you can actually see the few last months during the corona pandemic. We have been growing very rapidly because our service is now very, very relevant for the Finns because we are delivering groceries to your home door or to picking points all around Finland. So we have been growing pretty well last months, and that's something that we have to be very happy about, that our business is actually growing and not vice versa, like for the most of the entrepreneurs. Of course, we are still hoping that the corona will be over soon and we get a small impact to the economical and health side as possible. Yeah. There are some of our growth numbers on the bullet points. The first one is about the reduced food waste. So we have reduced over 2 million kilograms of food waste, and that's something that we are very proud of. And that's actually very great on our business, that even more we grow, even bigger we get, the bigger is also our environmental impact by reducing food waste. So that's very, very motivating for me and actually for the whole team. So basically the mission and euros are going to the same direction, basically. We can move on. Here are some unique selling points that we have, but basically customers orders from us because of two big reasons. The other one is the price. We sell about 30 to 40% cheaper than normal stores. And another very, very important point is the reducing of food waste. So actually our customers really love the values that we have, and they really love it that they can reduce food waste by ordering from our online store. Let's move on. There are also some reasons why our suppliers want to be involved, but I can summarize this that it's always a business case for our suppliers. So we are paying about the products and they get rid of the issue of food waste, and they really get money out of it. So it's a real business case for them. And also we are really helping them to achieve their own sustainability goals, because of course all our suppliers are willing to reduce food waste. And the other option for them is basically either to dump those products or to sell those to all around Finland to discount stores and so on, but that's not really efficient. So we are willing to offer them one channel where they can sell all the surplus easily, fastly. So basically this is a service for our suppliers. We already pretty much cooperate with all the biggest food manufacturers and importers in Finland. So the supplier side is already pretty well opened. Next slide, please. Last slide, so let's not use too much time because Michael is already there again. I will just say a few words about these if we still have time. So
yeah, sure.
So the first one, we pretty much covered that already. So that's a really great thing in our business, that our mission and our revenue is going in the same direction. So even bigger we get, the bigger is our impact, and more we reduce food waste, and that's very, very motivating. The other point how sustainability is meaningful for us is that we are really a food waste influencer. So we believe that it might be even more meaningful that we are changing people's habits and we are telling them how important it is to reduce food waste, and the impact that we cause by doing that might be even bigger than the impact what we cause by reducing food waste by ourselves. So basically we reach multiple millions of Finns each month already. For example, this month we have reached almost 1 million people in Facebook on our ads. We are advertising on all the significant radio channels in Finland, and also we are starting TV ads for the end of the month on Sanomas channels and so on. So we really reach a huge amount of people already, and we are telling them the meaningfulness of reducing food waste. So we believe that's very important. Then one little thing that we have done in addition to reducing of food waste, we have compensated all our carbon emissions by protecting wood in Finland. So that's one cool thing that we have done. And then maybe the main thing how sustainability is involved on our business is that really our mission is to reduce food waste, and all the environmental values are very, very important in our company. So really the sustainability has to be involved in the whole customer journey. So basically from the first ad that customer sees all the way to the online store and all the way to the package that the customer receives. So all the packaging materials have to be recyclable, green, and also there is nice thank you letter that say are reducing food waste with us, and there are guidelines how to recycle the package and so on. So those values really means something for us. And then there is a lot to talk also about the employer side and how we are willing to be a sustainable employer also, but we have to take another time for that. But we really take care, or we are really focusing on that our employees are able to learn as much as possible and grow among the company and so on. We really believe that then we can keep them involved. So that's something that we are focusing on a lot. But now I think we have to move on. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Juhani. I think despite the very bad and negative impact of the current Corona situation, I think there's a lot of good things happening, like the shift to platforms like Fixo, but also very many other impacts that are going into the right direction when we think about climate change, when we think about sustainability. So it stands to hope that these will carry over to the new normal once we're coming out of this crisis on the other end, and that the curve you showed us will just continue growing with the same steepness going forward. Because as you said, the more revenue you make, the bigger impact you're able to deliver, and that's I think the great thing about your solution. Could I ask all the speakers back into the session as we're now moving to the Q&A part? There's quite a few questions that we had. Let's maybe start with the first question. Mia, there was a question about the experiments. There was a question of which are the experiments you have been running, but I understand you haven't run experiments yet. But what would a perfect experiment look like? What would be an experiment that you would say that exactly ticks all the boxes we're looking for? This is exactly something we would aim for.
Thank you. Yes, that is correct. That in this project we haven't run pilots yet, but with these agile experiments we're getting to that. And of course there are other options for implementing pilots too, but agile experiments is a very straightforward way to get to that. But it's a difficult question in terms of what would sort of tick all of the boxes. But it would of course be a combination of circular economy and sustainability, and sort of refining new ways to implement that in a city environment, basically. And for me, I think a lot of potential in general lies in utilization of different existing material flows, also in food production, but also as well as in other solutions in general. And with NetLed, we, for example, saw those examples of utilization of different material flows, and to me that was very interesting. Okay,
cool. Thank you. Marcus, a question for you. Where are the Helmi pellets used? In which industries? Who are the typical buyers for these pellets? And you said they can stay in the circulation. How are they kept in circulation?
Yeah, really good questions. Unfortunately, I'm not qualified to answer those so well. But what I found out is that these are used in stores. I think that in grocers, I guess. But how do they actually get into the circulation? I have no idea, but I will put a link in the chat right now so that you can actually, I hope there's an English version as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
I guess Google Translate works well if it's only Finnish.
Yeah, so you can find out and ask for more information, and then if you would like to know something in more detailed, I will figure it out. I will ask my colleagues about it, and we will get back to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. One question to you, Nico, was how is it about scaling and food security? What are the limits of vertical farming? And will we go beyond herbs and salads in the medium term future in vertical farming? And maybe related to that, a question of the data comparison when it comes to water and energy between vertical farming, indoor farming, and the traditional outdoor farming. What's the comparison there?
First, I have to ask whether my microphone is working.
The microphone is working. The video is not, but
yeah, because it gives
good.
me a lot of errors. This system,
but we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, it's a good question because that's like the. I would say that the business is still on the stage of struggling with this, whether it's seriously taking or let's say future that can be seriously taken as a new way of producing these sort of things. In lettuce and herbs, we are way over the profitability calculations of greenhouse, for example. In most of the areas, of course, it's always a regional tied calculation. What is the labor cost, what is the water cost, what is the energy cost, and so on. With the scalability, our technology especially focused on the high volume production methods like let's say a replacement for greenhouse production, these things. And that's why the comparisons of the water and energy consumptions are done with greenhouses. Of course, it's quite difficult to compare how much there is energy consumed in open field. Maybe that's fuel or something for tractors or something, but that's I would say that's not relevant because the technology that the vertical farming technology is more serving the same segment than the greenhouse. And with that approach, we are way on the way to, let's say, overcome the greenhouse way of producing the same stuff. And of course, the lettuce and herbs, that's a very common question, that whether it's expandable to other crops. Well, yes, there's a lot of different crops being tested at the time. We have grown tomatoes and strawberries and all of these stevia, all of these little different crops, flowers even in the vertical farm. It all works. That's not the question whether it works or not. The question is whether it makes sense financial or not. And tomatoes, cukes, we are quite far yet whether it makes sense to grow those because they are so much more energy intensive than lettuce and herbs. But eventually we will be there. There will be protein crops, these beans, all these crops, and oil crops. But the difficulty with oil and proteins is that oil and protein itself is high energy content, high calorie content stuff. And it means that we must use huge amount more energy to produce those high energy content crops. So that's a delay there because the LEDs are still quite expensive, even though they have come quite far already in few years. But as I said, the food security in many places, the energy issues, the climate change issues, all these things are saying that it actually can cost a little bit more if we can make sure that the food is secure. We can certify that it's safe to eat. We can say that you can get the steady supply in every year for next 10, 15 years instead of evaluating a lot of different supply sources because we never know whether that's going to be able to be sourced from Spain or something like this.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's long answer for long question.
Thanks. That was really interesting. Juhani, there's a couple of questions. I will try to combine them because I think they look at some of the aspects through different lenses. So the first question is, what about your partners? When they improve their processes, they naturally reduce their surplus. And with that, they reduce your incoming products that you're going to sell. On the other side, there is a possibility that given that you're there, your partners become even more careless about producing surplus because they say like, yeah, we have these Fixuruoka guys, so we can produce whatever we want. They will sell it out for us. What's your experience there? What's the balance there between your suppliers optimizing versus your suppliers saying like, yeah, these guys take care of it?
Yeah, we haven't seen that really as an issue because we are always buying the products with pretty huge discounts because we are selling all the products with at least 20% off, and most of those are about 40, like I said earlier. So it's not really profitable business for our suppliers. So they are not willing to produce products for us and then sell those with half of the price that they would sell those to normal retail chains. So they are not willing to produce food waste to sell it for us because even we are paying about the batches, it's not really profitable business for them. And of course, they are trying to optimize their processes and to avoid the food waste, but they have been trying to do that since hundreds of years ago, and still there is a lot of food waste, and we haven't seen that it would have decreased really in the last years, sadly, because our mission is to reduce food waste. So if they would optimize whole food waste away, we would be happy and we would figure out something else to do. But it's not really in real world. That's not possible because they still have to make sure that they have the products to sell in each part of the supply chain.
Are you selling out all the products? So can you sell everything depending on if you lower the price?
Yeah, we sell everything what we buy. So we have food waste. So we have built own dynamic pricing that lowers the price if the products are not rotating fast enough, and we sell everything.
Cool, perfect. Okay, so I think we have to close here shortly in order to leave sufficient time for the workshop part. Maybe one final question to all of you. I mean, if you think about urban food production, if you think about avoiding food waste, if you think about all of these things that you're doing in that space, very quickly, if you would have one wish, what is the key thing you would wish for in order to accelerate our progress in that space and allow us to be even faster towards this circular point, towards this point where the food waste is going from 400, 500 million in Finland to 0, which will, granted, take some time. But what do you think is the key enabler, the key thing that will enable that going forward? Rapid fire, just very briefly. Let's start with you, Mia.
I would say partnerships with companies specifically, but also like a longer term thing would be the regulations, because there are a lot of regulations now blocking sort of the way to use some materials that we have. So those basically. Perfect,
thanks. Juhani.
Yeah, I think really the way how the food waste could be reduced a lot is the improving of the data and analytics tools and the sharing of data and the analytics. So if the producers would have all the data available, how really the retail chains are selling the products and all the partners in between on the supply chain, if all the data would be available, then there might be possibility to avoid the waste even better.
Perfect. Thank you, Juhani. Markus, what's your quick take?
The regulation is one, I guess, and what I figured is that producing food waste is for households, let's say, it's quite it's hard to get grasp on if you think that okay, there's food waste coming out, and it's basically it could be that I couldn't care less, so something should be done that I would care, so to speak. So I don't know if this translates in English, but let's say that sticks or carrots. So something to be to make it more like part of the everyday life.
Yes. No, good points. Nico, any quick thoughts on that?
You mean how to reduce the food
Yeah,
waste?
I mean how to impact the whole urban food production, food waste avoidance, all of this whole complex that we've been talking about today. I mean, from your point of view, what would help Nettles to be more to have more impact? Let's put it that way. Or what is your experience in that space?
Well, of course, the logistics is a big issue with the fresh produce, because that's taking out the sales shelf life of the crops, and also making it really short, bad quality, and people don't want to buy it, and these things which influence in the waste of that crop. So making it smarter. For example, now lots of vegetables, 60% of tomatoes and cucumbers are produced in Närpiö. Then they are shipped down to Vantaa or Janakkala for distribution centers, and then they are shipped back up north to Rovaniemi and these northern locations. So it doesn't really make sense to bring them back and forth. So it would make more sense to produce them locally. Then what is local and what makes sense in the local production? I'm a little skeptic about this as producing in basements and in containers in city centers, because it cannot be efficient. So it's always expensive to put it that way, because the unit, there is no economy of scale there. So my idea is that the proper way would be to have the production facilities nearby these logistical hubs of distribution centers, so on. So let's limit the traffic, the transportation time, and this lead time to the distribution centers, but then the distribution centers to the actual stores, where there is anyways trucks running constantly back and forth. So it doesn't really add on to that transportation that much. So I would say that's from my field, but then this is not something that I'm involved in, but I've been using this web grocery store system by Prisma for some time, and there I would see that if it's going to develop in that way, that the even now here in Tampere, so they are collecting most of the web purchases in one Prisma, and they're just shipping those to different distribution centers. And I would say that makes sense, because when you have huge facility where you're automatically picking those groceries, and then you're just distributing those to pickup sites, what you're doing in Fiksuruoga, and going in the morning, this thinking that instead of having a lot of stores that have huge amount of food waste, we just have one site which have much less cumulative food waste, and then we can just distribute from there to these big pickup points. That's just common thinking without knowing anything specific about this field. So
yeah, perfect. No, very, very good points. And I think just to close, there was a comment from Malahat about circular ecosystems, including efficient cooperation between industries, suppliers, consumers, and policies and regulators. I think that's a little bit what we've been talking about. There has to be different players that play together along in this in order to make it happen. Thanks a lot to all of you. A round of virtual applause. So I hope you can hear it from everyone online. We'll now move over to the workshop part of the session, as we normally have some mingling and some socializing. We can unfortunately not do that efficiently here, so we thought we'll invite Mika and Saara from Sweco to basically help us with facilitating the interaction a little bit in a workshop around how we can improve urban food value chains, urban food production. First, thanks, Juhani, Mia, Marcus, and Nico. And I'll hand over to you, Mika, to give us a short intro to the topic before Saara will then get us working. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and all the presenters. Wonderful job. Hope you hear me well enough. So I try to be short in my introduction, but first of all, the topic is now circular economy and urban food, and we actually heard a lot of those kind of topics or perspectives that relate to this, how we make this supply chain of food in urban for us people living in the urban environment more sustainable. So I'm now sharing you an article that is been translated in English recently, but it's published on March. We in Sweco have a mission of planning and designing the future cities, societies, and industries. So quite fittingly, we also are involved in thinking how this influences the urban environment, and then any changes or, let's say, new developments in the urban environment, how does it then relate or link back to the industry or the manufacturing, so the businesses providing us the commodities. So basically the question is, how can we shape the urban food value chain more circular, applying digital platforms or solutions, as we are now in a digitally circular event here. So previously we held also a similar event in Tampere, for example, joint venture with Taival, and there was also representatives from here positioning services, and it was nice to hear or notice that also their applications would be let's say readily available or applicable for these types of solutions in the urban food, which we are going to dive in just shortly. So hopefully you'll have time to get to know this article maybe later on, but just shortly to say about that, mostly the sustainability or the circularity of the solutions depend on our choices. So we have the power to contribute or make that transition happen. So in the article we are talking about service contracts and digital platforms that allow the information flow. Nice reflection to what Juhani just said in his final comments there, that that's the information flow. So first of all, contracts that we make could help us, as a service contracts, help us to commit to those principles important to us, like local produce, low on carbon footprint, or vegan, or whatever. So that would also diminish our, let's say, weak moments on the shop, between the shop shelves, where we do the bad choices, where we do the hasty choices. So it is actually, if we let the information flow, and we stick to the kind of our principles according to the contracts, our statement in the article is that it will enable us to optimize the local supply chain, to minimize the waste and save costs, basically, and lessen the carbon footprint. But also we need to take into account the urban planning. So it needs to have service hubs thought of. There was a nice opening from Nico, just the way we were thinking, and also help us to deliver on demand. So we talk about a lot of IoT and such too, which would help us to also let's say, adapt to the different situations where we, for example, leave house for a while. So that could be delivered also to the service that okay, now it's not a time to deliver those contract products. So the basic ideas in the workshop that Saara is now going to take on is how do we achieve this? What kind of business models and what kind of alliances or partnership models are needed and why they are not in place at the moment, and what we could do to promote those kind of models. So what are the like intensives that would help us on the way? Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mika. Can you hear my voice now? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Thanks also for all the presentators. It was fantastic. Really nice to listen to you guys. My name is Saara. I come from Sweco. I also work for the Sustainable Future Cities as a development director here, and will be guiding us. We have 25 minutes before the closing words. I'll just quickly demo for you what we will be doing. So sharing my screen and finding the right window from here. Chrome tab and Mural. So we will be using this tool. I hope you can see my screen. There's a nice template to work with, and you will soon get a access to it. I think some of you already are here actually, and some of you might have been testing it already. So when you get the link, it's preferable not to use Internet Explorer or Edge. So please check that you would be having preferably either Chrome or Firefox. The functionalities function better. What we do here is that we first think about the key enablers and key prohibitors today. So how can we improve the urban food value chain and discuss it today? We use those green and red stickers or notes for that. And then after that, we move to the future. So basically going to the dream state and ideating that a little bit. And then after that, we see how to do some scenarios between these two approaches. And then maybe having some conclusions on our collaboration and so on. So how to do it? First of all, you have here on your right side a small map of this place, and there's also a plus and minus that you can, if you want, you can zoom in and out. But maybe a more preferable option is that if you have a mouse, then you can just zoom in and out, and you will always see where you are if it seems that you sort of don't know where you should be. So just using that. And if you don't have a scroll in your mouse, then feel free to use, for example, from your keyboard, just Control+ and Control- to zoom in and out. We start here with key enablers and key prohibitors. And then how to use the stickers or the post-it or the notes. Just by going to the place you want to add up a note and pressing a double click, you get a new note. But now that we want to use greens and red ones, it's good to choose one of these that you have here already and then just copy paste it. So either using your the keyboard of Control-C and Control-V, and you have a new sticker that you can move around. And then when you click on it, you'll see this small text and you can start writing something. Then if it accidentally somehow disappears, then here's the undo button, so you can just return what you were just doing. In case you want to find those stickers yourself, so then over here the 5x3 and the right colors, you can also just take them from there and start dragging and dropping them. What else? I think these are the features we need for today. Of course, in case you want to add up some arrows or put some icons, or there would be a possibility for a picture or then a drawing if you want, you can do that as well. But okay, I hope that you have found